Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Donald Hutera, and I'm talking to you from my lovely attic in North London on this very windy day here. Welcome to Taiwan Season 2020 Online Symposium Connecting with Taiwan. For those of you who have been here before, you know that I'm about to tell you about what this month-long marathon is. And for those who are new, well, here's what it is. Every Tuesday, I have a 45-minute informal conversation with one of the four choreographers whose work was meant to be seen all of August in Edinburgh at either Dance Base or Summer Hall, two key venues there. Those sessions are then repeated on Thursdays, and then on Wednesdays and Fridays, there is a 2-hour each day, two-part themed webinar. And this week we're looking at live art and cross-cultural translation, etc., etc. Next week we'll be looking at Indigenous art, but you'll hear more about that later. Throughout this session, any comments or questions you might have, please post them in comment box, the comment box wherever that is on your system, and we'll deal with that, as many of those as we can. We are also quite interested in who you are, where you are, why you have joined us. So if you care to say something about yourself, it would just be useful to know. So without further ado, I would like to bring on stage River Lynn, who is the keynote speaker this week for today's session, which is called Live Art, Performance, Exhibition, and Expanded Choreography. River, please come to the virtual stage.
Hello, thank you, Donald,
Wow.
for welcoming this section this afternoon and evening. And hello, everybody, and all the online viewers from around the world, including Australia and Europe and Taiwan and other parts of Asia. My name is River Lin. I'm a Taiwanese performance artist based in Paris, but currently I'm back in Taipei for some events. And yeah, today I am very pleased to, after Wednesday section about cross-cultural collaboration and translation, today I'm very pleased to present to you and introduce a little bit about what's going on in Taiwan of the live art practice in the museum or visual art sphere. And today I will be doing a presentation introducing 3 works, including my own. And but also I will be having 3 lovely guests, special guests. They are artists. Fangas, Nayaw, choreographer and dancer, indigenous choreographer and dancer from Ami tribe of Taiwan. And also the sound and contemporary artist Chi-Wei from Taiwan, currently based in Paris. And also the director of MADRE, the Contemporary Art Museum of Naples in Italy, and the founding director and curator of Cosmopolis, the biennial event at Central Pompidou, to join us, having the discussion and articulating the creative and curatorial process towards the live art perspective and practice. Okay, c'est parti. Let's get started. So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, cool. So the presentation that I'm giving is about live exhibition and expanded choreography. The cover image that you see is from Fangas Nayaw's work. Misaya. It's very difficult. Masinya. It's from the Ami tribe indigenous language. Misinya means literally can be translated as crazy or go wild. And so This is the Mortuum Museum of Taipei that presenting and staging this Masinya exhibition and work from Fangas 3 years ago in 2017, and later it was presented in Central Pompidou last year. And so as you see in this image, you see some installations basically composed by, well, guitar or some posters, and of course Taiwan beers and as if like a living room setting. So in this section I will be through artist practice and case studies that hopefully that we will be able to getting to know the live art as exhibition or performance-based artwork in the context of Taiwanese institutions. And just wanted to say briefly the wording that I'm using, expanded choreography, is not necessarily or not only rooted in the contemporary dance point of view, but expanded nowadays into the visual art dictionary. Now, for example, you can find this terminology on MoMA's online resources. And of course, I will be explaining later why I'm borrowing these terminologies to address the live art practice of today's cases. Okay, let's go for this. When I was formulating this sharing, some keywords or key notions came to me, and I would like to contextualize a little bit before we go diving into artists' case studies. So basically, I would like to share and examine how the live performance in gallery settings being presented and considered and viewed or even experienced or participated not only in this increasing fashionably trend in the Westerner context of Europe or North America, but also how we can further consider this kind of practice, live performance practice in gallery settings in the Asia Pacific. And secondly, through these case studies, we will be checking or viewing how the artist staging the artist's body as archive, object, exhibition, situation, score, or even instrument, etc., etc. And finally, the third entry point of this presentation will be looking at participation, collaboration, and encounter between the artists and participants or audiences and viewers. So let's go to check the first case. The first work that I would like to share with you all is tap music made by the sound artist from Taiwan, Chi-Wei. Chi-Wei is a iconic artist emerged from 90s of Taiwan, where at that time it was just at the very beginning of the lift of martial law from the KMT party, founded by Chiang Kai-shek. If you know some this information of the history, and so Chi-Wei's style practice is basically conflicting or let's say involving participation, the crowd, the situation, and the human body as the instrument. And in such practice, he has been considering the actions or how the artist's body and the crowd's body can do in the social engagement context. So let's check this work video. Just some words. This work is basically performance based, normally presented in community space or public space, and also exhibition and museum gallery spaces. And this performance based artwork is basically conducted or performed through the audience participation to stage the score onto the text, the object text. Let's look at the video excerpt. The version at the Central Pompidou last year. Yeah. So as you saw from the excerpt of the work, basically, I would interpret it as the artist has been choreographing the situation, composing, including the presence of the audience and the space and how the audience move and act through this tape, rotating a circle. And of course, we have Chi-Wei here. And so after this presentation, we'll be inviting all the artists to articulate more and introduce with us more about their creative process of their projects. And the second word that I would like to share with you today is Masinkia. Masinkia. Yeah, I'm really sorry. Masinkia, sorry for my pronunciation if it's not correct. Um, it's made by the artist Fangas Nayaw, the indigenous choreographer and dancer from Taiwan, from the Army tribe. In this work, staged in Motin Museum in Taipei in 2017, um, basically the artist Fungus staging the assembly or the social encounter or um, the situation, the situational gathering in this museum space. And the local context in Taiwan here is like, you know, in terms of the transformative justice has been raised and been drawing people's citizens' attention in Taiwan approximately after 2000, the year 2000s. And in this way, um, the indigenous culture and the revival of this, their presence, their voices, their bodies, and their discourse, and of course their history, has been presented after 2000 in the public institutions of contemporary arts and the theater. So at the very beginning, in this specific cultural phenomenon and understanding in Taiwan, people or the general public normally consider, you know, the indigenous culture is, um, you know, related or connected with rural space of the city or the country, and however and whatever it can be not urban, something that people having this general understanding of stereotype or whatever you can say, like racism or the misunderstanding to this specific culture. But after the support and the ongoing facilitation and collaboration between the indigenous artists and the arts institutions in Taiwan, nowadays this kind of artistic expression of performative practice in the museum can be seen increasingly. So one key word in this context is this one, masinkia, means go crazy or go wild in the Amis indigenous language. In this space, it's like an exhibition taking place around 1 month, and every day and night the audience are um, welcome and invited to come into the museum and to encounter all the indigenous artists from the tribe. And of course, they are friends and fellows of Fangas, and they have been in this live exhibition. They have been giving, I would say, chatting or creatively lecture performance, of course, drinking together, getting to know you, dancing together to celebrate the culture and the identity in the museum space. And at the same time, museum as a metaphor of being social or being challenged from the object-based display to the live encounter politically. So let's check it out. Let's watch a little bit the excerpt of this work, Masinkia. The version that the artist provides is also made from the Cosmopolis presentation last year in the Central Pompidou.
我从小到大印象很深刻的一首诗歌叫做《如露溪水》。
Donc ma première chanson, c'est une chanson qui m'a beaucoup marqué, qui s'appelle As the Deer.
谢谢。如同路切切客，无溪水莫名一颗坠，求你唯有你是我心所爱，我渴慕来敬拜你。你是我的力量盾牌，我身心灵为降服于你。嗨嗨呀嗨，咿呀呀哦嗨呀，咿呀哦嗨呀嗨嗨，耶呀耶嗨呀，啊哎呀，咿呀哦嗨呀，
哪有要回家？你还是不要回家好吗？你跟你的那个表哥表姐一样，还没有结婚就去生小孩子就好了。我在学校的时候，老师会说：“浩哲，你一定要好好读书，你知道吗？这个年级只有你是唯一的原住民，你绝对不要走偏，因为你是背着十字架来的。”这的时候，突然传来了一个广播的声音：“噔噔噔噔。” 6年6班同学赖浩哲，6年6班赖浩哲同学听到广播，请在下节课到教室出来。噔噔噔，怎么能与星星比？太阳下山了，明天还会再出来。 可是你走了，明天是否还会来？风你不要停，那是我的爱歌。与你不要停，那是我的眼。哎呦呀，哦那玛丽亚，有啥多卡比阿米古里，哎呦咿呦巴里那么海才多大风。马家三岁不要紧，我们是快乐的好儿童，身体好，精神好，爱情甜，有礼貌，人人见了，一眼走了，一眼走了，一眼走了，走了，走了，又一眼走了。大家来慢活，大家来慢活，有来一起，有来一起哟。Come on, baby, why don't we got town? And know that chance I'm gonna use my knee and wrap my stockings down. And know that chance start I know what would be Legs and noises go like glitter and more.
有因何呀？有因何呀？嘿呀哦啊，嗨呀一番，哦咿呀，嗨哟咿。有因何呀？嘿哟何呀？哈那乌啊，哟何呀？嗨哟你何呀？哦哎呀哈，哦哎呀，好因何呀？哈嘿哈嘿哈，何以呀那乌啊，何哎呀那。有因何呀？有因何呀？
Yeah, so that's the excerpt of the Missing Kia last year in Paris, and the third piece of is made by myself, and I presented this work last year in Kwantu Museum of Fine Art in Taiwan, Taipei, and the title is called "My Body is a Queer History Museum." So basically, through staging this work, I wanted to bring together performers from a range of sexuality and gender identities, no matter it's homosexual, heterosexual, transgender, and beyond, put together to celebrate the gender equality, or let's say considering to celebrate the gender equality in the context of considering their bodies is the historical site of their own queer history museum. So this is like also a gathering based or ongoing situation based performance being staged in the museum space, conflicting lecture performance, workshop, um, doing catwalk and karaoke together from with the audience members. And so let's check a little bit this excerpt.
天地虽宽，这条路却难走。我看遍这人间坎坷辛苦，我还有多少爱，我还有多少泪，要苍天知道，我不认输。感恩的心，感谢有你。 看我一生，让我有勇气做我自己。感恩的心，感谢命运。花开花落，我一样会珍惜。
Yes. So these are the three works that I would like to share with all of you this today or tonight. So now I would like to invite my lovely three guests, Chi-Wei, Fangas, and Kathryn, onto this stage. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. So at the very beginning, can I have Fangas and Chi-Wei? Can you both well separately share with us a little bit more about the work? How that, for example, the missing Kia, how did you conceive this project to be staged in the museum? Because that was also your first time to do live performance and staging live works in the gallery settings, right? So how did it come out? This.
So I go first. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Fangas Nayaw. I'm from Taiwan. I'm indigenous people from Amish tribe, and I'm also the director and the curator of Mashingiai. Uh, my pronunciation may be the correct one, the Mashingiai. It's not Meshingi or something like the river says, because that's really the mother tongue of my language. Mashingai means crazy, and something is insane, or the people get weird or get really insane or crazy, something like that. And in the Masingai in 2017, I didn't know what I just do for the live art or the live performance, because why I want to do this piece, I have to be honest that it's about my background, because I'm indigenous people in Taiwan, in Amsterdam, and my father and my mother also, they are 100%, I can say that, the Amish tribe person. But we are located in the local town. It's more city, like in Taitung. So my background is a little bit different than the others, that I really live in with the hands people and another people in my tribe. So there's not only Amish tribe or indigenous tribe in my town, in Taitung. So I really learned a lot of mixed culture about my childhood, because I was 18 years old, and I go to Taipei to work and to study. So I have to be honest that I am not like the mainstream media says the indigenous peoples looks like and what they behave like, because I'm a little different, because my childhood is totally different. So I do this work is because I do a lot of production about indigenous work. They are all ask us to do the certain way of the government say, like you have to learn how to sing, and you have to learn how to do the ceremony, do this harvest festival, or do the dance of the tribe songs. And that really bothers me, because my original place is my family. My family is not my tribe. So I was really curiosity about my tribe. It's totally different. So every time when I go back to my father's tribe and go back to my mother's tribe, they are all look they their eyes look at me. It's like I'm the outsider of the tribe, because I'm not grow up in the tribe. So I take the eyes, the view of theirs looking as really important things for me. So I was wondering if we can have a good conversation or good chance to know each other, what will be like. Because for me, it's not dance for the audience or singing for the audience. Maybe we can have like making friends with others, because once we can make friends with others, maybe we will jump to the further way that we are we erase all the nationality, and we are erase all the genders. We just talked about the topic that we like. Maybe the topic can trigger us that to make each other understanding that, oh, why you think about this and how you do that, because of your background. So this is the main idea that I want to share, the stories or the share the idea. And to do with the museum is another another story, because every time I take my parents and take my tribal brother or my grandmothers to Taipei, I want to share my leisure time with them, I will take them to the show, to the production, and to see the theater, or also the museum. But every time they go to the museum, they are just like, oh, the building is so great, but I have poor clothes, I cannot get in, or I have only slippers in my foot, so I cannot go in. And the building is so good, maybe that costs a lot of money, so I cannot go in. So it's like, if we have another tribe life or another hometown in the Taipei or in another place, but that is not my birthplace, that what will be like. And if we are Miss people or indigenous people, that we move away to our life to another place, and what the life will be like. So it's really important for me to do that, to recognize if there is an activity in the museum, and what will you think about the museum. It's a home or activity or exhibition or performance or the acting. And also I want to have a conversation with the mainstream media that we are mixed people or we indigenous people, we have really different types of people. We are still the people. So I ask from different gender and different type of profession and different ages to join this team to the Masingai, because we want to share the different story. But if we all are the indigenous people, the story will be totally different, that because of our background. So this is the two main idea about why I want to do the Masingai in Taipei. But in the Paris, in Center Pompidou, it's totally different way, because in Taiwan we share the same language, even the Mandarin and the Hans language, or English also, and maybe the music also, or the dancing also. We open the space to having the people come in and let's have a chat and a talk. And so there's no limits for the exhibition or the perform. We are not trying to perform in the museum, but we want to make the situation that is more real in the museum, that you are not running into an exhibition, you are running into someone's life. So we want to make the connection with the everyone. But in Paris, we share the different language, so that's will be totally different point of view. So me and my dramaturg and also Iris, we try to figure out what is represent for the Taiwan or indigenous culture, because we cannot share the same language, and we have to make something is like more settled down. We have to make that into the program. So we have the workshop program and the lecture, and also the one man story, and also the bagongo and the mini concert. So we take that as a young people who run into the harvest festival. You can see the journey of they are growing up. So in this 1 week, we share this type of the storyline to make you understand about Taiwan, or about indigenous people, and also about our story. So the most important thing is we cannot have the same language, but it's more like when the elders passing along the culture to me, because I'm a younger generation, we still have one thing lost, because our elders using the mother tongue, and I only can learn the mother tongue and listen or understanding the mother tongue. It's only just like 30%, but there's still something missing about the translation, in the translation. So I think this is the really interesting thing is we didn't know everything about the elders saying, but we can learn from what he is doing or she is doing. by just accompanying with the elders and the mother or grandfather like that. So maybe getting along together to have time together is really important. So you can see the footage that in the Bagongo. Bagongo is Amis tribe language in the way that we're sharing story. We're sharing story about everything you have been through in this day. So in the Bagongo, we use the Google translation to have the talk. It's not like the real talk, but once we have the same tools to have a communication, it's more like we are getting more closer because of these tools. So in the Bagongo, so everybody can get this letter. The letter is about, hi, I'm from Taiwan. Maybe you are not, you have no idea about Taiwan, but we still have some stories about Taiwan or me want to share with you. If you want to join us, you can take this letter and bring your APP to the exhibition so we can have talk. So then 1 hour talk later, but there's no verbal language, only the virtual language that they are using the APP for exchanging the stories and teach something or sharing something or even dancing together. But it's because the same emotion and the weird tools about the APP. So in Paris and Taipei, it's really totally different way to deal with the machine AI. In Paris, we try to map out the Amis experience in another land about the culture. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so when you presented this work in Taiwan, it was like more about restaging or reenacting the everyday of the tribe culture, whereas in Paris it was another situation. I guess I would say about
Maybe.
knowledge production.
But I didn't have enough
in that
time
context.
to translate.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean through this project to produce knowledge culturally and socially. Yeah. And Chi-Wei, Chi-Wei, can you? Oh, Kathryn, do you want to say something?
I can also jump in on that just to add to what Fangas was saying about Paris, that as well as the having really worked on a new structure of how that presentation within a museum space could function without language, which was very, very impressive and direct, and people kept coming back for different sessions. We had really regular audience members who stayed pretty much for the whole event. Each day would come back. There was a sense of a radical presence within that museum space, which was very important and transmits a lot, beyond the really smart and funny uses of the app and music and dance and so on. Just the fact of presenting a very thriving cultural intelligence within what is still a white box museum space, also that's very focused on European American modernism rather than opening to other aesthetic heritages, was a very, very strong statement. So just to add to what you were saying about knowledge sharing and the translation that was happening, cultural and other translation, there was the live statement about the importance of other perspectives and other cultural heritages was really key, I think. So,
Yeah, thank you, Kathryn. This important words of information. Now, I guess later we will be having you to talk with us a little bit more about the experience of the Cosmopolis project last year in relation to the two artists today. So Chi-Wei, can we?
Yes.
Yeah, Chi-Wei, could you share with us a little bit more about tech music? It's a very long term work, right? And could you tell us like how did you conceive and stage this work like more than 10 years ago and how it evolves?
For me, it's a little bit the same as Fangas. It's also very related with my personal history. I mean, in 90s, I worked a lot as a programmer for the underground music festivals, such as noise or industrial music. So in that case, you meet a lot of direct confrontation between the audience and the artist. Sometimes artists even provoke the audience to react. And in many occasions, especially in the 90s student movement context, the audience often react also very strong, and at the same time very much to be creative. Sometimes I feel it's even more creative than the artists do. So this leaves me a very deep impression. In this way, I think I kind of encourage or to create a status that make this kind of interaction easier to happen. This sometimes and often means conflicts. As a programmer, I'm intended to do that. So this remains something very important in my head about how art can be. Also, at the same period, I'm the student of culture anthropology. I do a lot of research on the field research for the Taiwanese ceremony, folk fest ceremony, and folk rituals such as shamanism and Taoism practice. So they also have lots of interact between the performers and the audience or the believers. And for me, the turning point is in 2004 that I was invited to a media art festival in 2004. So I was arranged in the program to play between Carl Stone, the very famous laptop musician, and Francisco Lopez, also another very famous electronic music musician or environmental sound musician. So at that time, I decided to do something interesting. I decided to degrade my personal practice as a computer musician to do something similar to that in the principle, but totally triggered by the audience or by the personals. So that's a little bit the origin of my tape music.
And afterwards, when you develop or present tech music in different spaces or places, or in different communities or social contexts, how did it evolve in each different version?
Actually, it was evolved very, very, very slow because during a long period I was in China. And even I think the second or third the third versions of tape music, I continued to work it for like 10 years without lots of changing on it. It's really related with the audience that react to me. That I don't need to create something new for them because it's already a big confrontation in a way for the audience to receive and to react to that. But when you bring it to Europe, for example, the most impressed me was in Berlin, for example. When I bring the tape music to Berlin, I think twice, the audience are so easy and so good at interpreting tape music to the extent that I don't feel the tape music is needed for them. You see what I mean? So that also made me try to have newer versions or completely different thinkings about the tape music work.
And how was the experience last year in the Cosmopolis?
It is very interesting because normally in the big museum, the audience are when the visitors are visiting museum, they are not intended to shout or to speak loud or even to make big gestures. But so in this case, I make a specific version which adapt more to the museum circumstance. That is called the note music, the notes, like the note music, 音节. So in that sense, this version demands more delicate sound expressions instead of shouting loud or shouting. So in this case, it works well because people are not demand to make their exaggerated gestures or sounds.
Yeah, because both the note music and also tap music are based on the, I mean, you sort of like draw or implement the score onto such object.
Mm-hmm.
Does the object mean something to you when you make choice?
It relates more with the interactivity of the audience. I mean, the material can change the way the audience reading it and react to it, totally change it. It's very true. For example, the note music one, you can play in total darkness. Actually, that was made to intend to perform in total darkness. So in that case, the audience could react very, very differently, even though I only tried it several times with my friends instead of the real audiences.
And Kathryn, could you share with us about your experience of working with content?
Yeah, I mean, Chi-Wei, as he was just saying, modified or thought about how the performance could work in that museum space so that people could feel comfortable within an exhibition with other people walking around and so on, in singing and making noise and performing in some sense and being part of this experiment of this temporary collective that the tape music creates. The public loved that. I mean, there wasn't any problem with them. Also because of how it was set up, there was a dedicated space. It felt, very simple and comfortable. You didn't have to stand in front of anyone, although it was in the middle of the exhibition. People walked past. People really, really enjoyed this possibility of experiencing something that related to what they were thinking about in the exhibition as well. We did it on Sunday afternoons, so there usually were, quite a lot of people around seeing the show and then stopping to either be in or watch the performance. And we did it every Sunday throughout the show. So Weir also had quite a big commitment in being there every time and conducting the sessions. But yeah, it worked very well. I guess another thing to ask. Oh, sorry, you go first, Fangas.
No, you go first, okay. Because you go first.
Oh, I was going to go on about it's a work, and I've talked to Chi-Wei about this before, that is very interesting in relation to how in different cultural contexts as well as spatial contexts, in the museum or not in the museum, people might embody that protocol that Chi-Wei has set up. And I was going to ask him if he wanted to speak a little bit more about that. That's something that over time, I think, has been played out in many different contexts. And so there's kind of this accumulation of forms of cultural knowledge or cultural translation that are very interesting within the work. I'll throw over to you to talk about that.
Yes, actually, I do think it's an instrument tool made for the third world countries, much more than made for Centre Pompidou. I mean, when the third world audience meet this tape, they always have since they didn't anticipate and they are not accustomed to do this kind of, I mean, these audience are the people that never touch anything related with contemporary music or even contemporary art at all. Mostly the audience I deal with in Taiwan and also in China, especially in China. So that always makes something, I don't know, exciting, because you cannot anticipate it at all, how they will react to it. And they're always very astonished and very surprised, sometimes excited to react to it. But when you bring it to the artist community in Germany, so it's totally something else.
Yeah. And you were saying also that like certain contexts that where you've presented it, people are very good at following rules and also maybe very good at observing other people. And then other contexts, people are much more individually expressive or wanting to, in some way shine in the group and things.
The most radical experience I experienced is in Hong Kong. That I play in Hong Kong many times, but every time nobody cared about anybody else. Nobody listened and nobody tried to cooperate with anyone. Everyone goes their own way. And with the Hong Kongese audience who is not acquainted to the contemporary art, they will just laughing and just feel very released to interpret this. So it's very noisy in this way in Hong Kong. Not especially in a positive sense. But for example, in Japan, probably, and sometimes in Taiwan, people are very disciplined. So they everybody try to find one thing to follow. But how this one is created is very interesting, because I didn't tell them how to do that. So some of people will start to lead it and the others will follow. In this way, it sounds best. It sounds like music.
How about Fangas? Did you want to say something?
Oh, yes, I want to say something, because I in 2016, I have a great opportunity to meet the tap music in another museum with my performers, and in Taipei City 美术馆, I forgot how to say.
In the Montu Museum. Oh no,
Yes.
the Taipei Fire Museum.
Yes, Taipei Fine Art Museum. And at that time, I take my 10 performers to the museum to see the museum, and we also saw the tap music, and we are the participation in the tap music, and
very
that was
funny to know.
That was really beautiful. That the words triggered them to sing, and they in the group they will quickly find who is the lead vocal to be the follower to follow. So the music is really I think it's totally different way to think about the music, that who come first, the melody come first, or the rhythm come first, or the idea come first for the music. They just follow and they just do it, and they will find the harmony about the music. And the interesting thing is, after the experience, my performer asked me that what tribe of the music of the work, because they never know about this is the this is the piece, this is the work. They are asking whose tribe is it, and whose tribal music is about the tap music. So it's a really impression experience for me and my performers.
Thanks, Fangas.
You didn't know this, Chi-Wei, no?
No, I didn't know this. He never tell me.
Definitely. Yeah, and so far, Donna, would you like to give some feedback?
Well, I would, but given that you are also somebody who is represented here with work, I would like to hear a bit more about your work before opening it up to me and opening up this discussion to our audience now. So maybe, River, you could expand a bit on the thinking behind what we saw.
Yeah. I actually forgot this.
I'm glad to remind you.
So, basically, my performance-based work is always staged in gallery space, in gallery settings. So, and one of my research interests has been revolving around the notion of performing archive, in the context of, body as a performance artist, so body as the museum, body as the collection, body is the archive of something in relation to, individual or collective identities, and also memories or something relevant. So, so in the piece that I share in this section is for me more about considering how this individual body actually collect by themselves in relation to queer understanding. That how did they grow up, and how has the society shaped their own current gender identity and sexuality, for example. And the reason why I didn't have the casting, the lineup of all homosexual performers, because I really wanted to try like how inclusion can be conducted and presented in this performance in terms of performing identities in this way. So, and the reason why I use the method of forming, gathering, or assembling those bodies and the audience members is because I wanted to do a party, a party in a museum space. That means party conceptually as a tool to advocate or to celebrate voices, some specific voices and gestures, and or to against certain protocol in a wider range. Yeah. So the piece, My Body is a Queer History Museum in Taipei last year was presented 2 or 3 times in a weekend, and each time running for 5 hours or 4 hours, I forgot, as a durational performance and an ongoing situation in the museum space. So the visitors can come and go, of course, at any point, and they might encounter different parts of the exhibition. They might encounter the runway project or the karaoke moment or the workshop moment. Now, for example, in the excerpt, you saw a biological female performer. She was inviting the audience member to bend her breast. And she wanted to do this because she found that could be a very great opportunity to do this for the very first time of her life. Yeah, she never, I mean, of course, she considered herself as tomboy, lesbian, but she never ever do this process of, pressing or compressing her breast, and she was like doing this with the audience members, and that was also, I would say, a sex education to many people in that context.
So I have a lot of questions about many things, understandably, and I'll just share some of the ideas, and you can pick anything that is particularly appealing or that triggers anything in you. And that's the same for anyone who may be watching us and listening to us now. I'm thinking about spectacle versus connection, and what do those two things mean together? Do they work together? Do they work separately? And how? I'm also thinking about, on a similar line, I guess, invitation and provocation, which also makes me think of terms that I enjoy about performance, concept terms, seduction and surrender. How do you seduce an audience, and when does the audience member surrender to that seduction? It's something that plays around in my head sometimes, because I ask myself, when does that happen to me, that surrender? I'm also thinking about and Chi-Wei, you mentioned, actually many of you mentioned taking time. And I know, with art, you can't force it, or it's maybe not comes out, it doesn't maybe come out so well when it's forced, but just this notion of evolution and taking time, and perhaps in terms of the world we're living in today, what new meanings to taking creative time are there now? I'm also thinking, River, you party, the whole notion of party, it kind of relates to the other works, the collective experience. Yeah, I'm always very interested in who the audience is and what they want and what they derive from the experience. And also for everyone, but for Kathryn, this idea about an environment, a museum environment that you might feel intimidated by or not welcome in, and those disruptions of behavior that can arise, that for me is a value, of course, of performance, but perhaps some more talk about that might be useful. And lastly, I know I'm throwing a lot out, discovery. What discoveries get made? Because River, you just mentioned the binding of the breasts and how that was a new experience. So I wonder, perhaps for each of you, what discoveries have been made along the way. So that's a lot. I guess I would say pick and choose what you feel most interested in or have the best response for. And I don't know who might want to begin, but I will now be quiet and leave the floor to the four of you and to our audience.
Who wants to go first?
Maybe we can start with the spectacle and connection. I do find this is probably the one thing very common between us three, that we all face the same question of what is pre-written script and what is improvisation at the place, or what is living and what is pre-write. I think we all meet the same question. Also, I think this is very present in Masinka work of Fangas. I mean, to what extent it is performance and to what extent it is improvisation. I think this is very essential, especially for me. For me personally, it's a very serious issue even until today.
And for me, that relates to discoveries, because I'm quite interested as a consumer of culture, but also as a maker myself or performer, whatever I'm attempting to do in my life at this stage, of what is calculated and planned and prepared, and then the things that you don't expect, the unpredictable. For me, and I would imagine for most of you or all of you, that live art is very conducive to that unpredictability, which can be so exciting because it's living. It's a very living thing.
It is very exciting for me, but probably not for the festival curators. Because everybody wants something safe that they can represent, as they represent something they already know, already they can control, not something totally out of control. To what extent that we can let things out of control? This is always a problem to me.
Well, you know, it's even interesting to me that Fangas, your work, the meaning of the title, because titles for me are always clues to the work itself, and very useful clues. If it's crazy or wildly insane, that's an intriguing and appealing choice to name the work, the event that you are inviting people to be a part of, even if they don't know that that's what it means.
For me, it's the meaning of machine guy really means a lot for me, because it's like the thing that you have never saw. So maybe it's in the performance or in the exhibition or in the gallery, in the museum. So maybe we are going to be that view for the viewers, for the viewer who comes into the museum. So it's like we try to use this as an invitation that we want to exchange for the universal value to the specific value, individual value, especially in Taiwan, because when we want to share the culture, but not in the performing way. We want to share that we truly have different habit about the daily life, but what habit can we talk about? Maybe that's the trigger, or that's the reduce the seduce for the viewers, because we are really focused. Like, for example, we are really focused on the wine. The wine for indigenous people in Taiwan is the stereotype about the image of indigenous people. But maybe we are in Paris, the wine or the beer is totally different for the viewers who watching us. But we want to telling the story that if we have the same wine, but the wine can be the universal value, but the wine story about me is the individual value for us, because like we get the wine in the tribe, that's from our generation to another generation. That means something, that the elders give you the wine or the rice wine. That means you have the duty to take responsibility of the tribe. So it's not we want to share the wine and having the the relaxed time about talking. It's the wine itself. It's the story. We want to share the totally different value about everything. So we can have the talk and the something that is really catch their eyes, that maybe wine is the for the viewers, for the it's the image for attach the people, but we still have the story about the wine. So we choose a lot of items or the property like that to have the first catch, and then you can catch the least view to individual stories about our performance or our story.
So I'm thinking now about wine as a passing on of responsibility. So thank you. That's a very interesting way to think about what I associate with leisure and letting go. And I'm also thinking about the idea of seduction, surrender, and fishing. You put a little bait on a hook, and the fish bite. And it might be a really interesting worm that they've never tasted before or that they've never experienced.
And we do really have like a collective collaboration that we go to Paris before the exhibition, like for 7 days, because we want to really map out the Amis experience. If we don't have the chair, what wooden table or what box we are going to use as the live property. So we find so many things about how to have the culture exchange with the for the exhibition. And the wine and the red wine, that's the big culture shock in Paris, because they can use the wine, the Taiwan beer, to compare with the red wine. They are going to choose what red wine is really good for the Taiwan beer. They can know, because they have different taste about the wine. Which wine is much more better? It's more closer to his story, so he can make the wine in the live exhibition. But the story is about the wine. It's not about we want to shock you that we put the red wine and the Taiwan beer together, because we are trying to find out what's the taste of the flavor that is more close to our life. So the really fantastic experience about in Paris is like the cyberpunk in Amish tribe, because we are moving the land to Paris, but we cannot have all the items and all the food as we do in Taiwan. So we have to collect and to find out and to discover something is really good for me, that can trigger me to talk fluently, to share the story. Like I can see any bars, I can trigger me that there's story in the life that when I was in Taipei or in Paris. So that would be about the culture shock and the value exchanging about all the machingia in Paris.
I can maybe.
Oh, Kathryn, go ahead.
Shall I jump
in?
There also say that I've been thinking also about the museum context in Taiwan and then in Europe or in Paris for Cosmopolis at Pompidou, and the fact that in Taiwan there is very, very good support for live arts in general, and seems to be a kind of flexibility in the museum context to take risks or present different formats that can be more complicated in certainly in large institutions in Europe like the Pompidou. So there was a huge discussion around the alcohol and what we would or wouldn't be allowed to do, and also lots of other issues that we had to go through, where I think it was quite shocking for Fangas and all the other performers and Iris after the experience of performing that work in Taiwan at the National University of Education to come as the second presentation to Pompidou and to have to rethink things that they weren't expecting to have to rethink, which was really more about the institutional context than the cultural translation. But I wondered if the three of you had some reflections on the kind of context in Taiwan that there is for live arts today, within or without the museum context, within the museum context, but I guess also, in other performing arts contexts.
I guess I can, yes. Well, this is very good question, Kathryn, because over the past few years, I would say 5-6 years, I mean, very recent. Of course, the very beginning of museums in Taiwan started to think about or present live exhibitions or live art works because of the global trend, like looking at Biennale systems, looking at some other major museums in Europe cases. So, but however, this is like I would say at the beginning there has been a complexity of the paradigm because most of the museum curators in Taiwan, they are professional at something else but not performance. So the knowledge, in terms of the knowledge or the experiences of staging live works in the gallery space, that is not part of the system originally. So in this way, some museum curators, they might have reached out performing or dance or live artists to get more understanding, or they work with other institutions to co-present performative events. However, over the past few years' experiences, I would say the museum spheres in Taiwan, they have been positively embracing live practice from a wide range of disciplines. Not only like visual artists doing something live performatively, but also welcoming artists from the theater making or dance making and something else to stage conceptual live work or participatory live work in non-theater space. And this ongoing recent and ongoing phenomenon is, I would say, according to my observation, is related to the increased knowledge and attention towards interdisciplinary production. Yeah, because, and this is also very new in Taiwan, or I would say in general in Asia Pacific setters, because it's not really, in terms of the interdisciplinary artistic production, it's not simply about, like, for example, a video artist working with a dance artist, and that's interdisciplinary. It's really about like how the curatorial sectors and artistic production sectors of artists can really have such conversation and dialogues towards this non-binary system of understanding art. Yeah, so I think this is very new, but I would say very optimistic in Taiwanese context now. And those recent projects have been really facilitating the visibility of a lot of artists originally from the theater context to be visible in the visual art context, and thus generating some conversations.
And what about Chi-Wei or Fangas? Would you like to address Kathryn's question? Just one of you unmute and decide to take the lead. There, good.
I'm not capable of answering because I wasn't really in Taipei during the past years.
Fangas.
What? I'm still thinking.
Okay. Well, why don't the two of you think? And we have our good friend Gary Platt has asked a couple of questions. Let's deal with the second one first, which is a kind of Kathryn-related question about culture and aesthetics. Can backstage crew, can you banner that question, please, using the magic of technology? Because it's a good question, but I have to look it up. I can look it up. All right. Do the presenters think that some cultures' aesthetics are more reciprocal, compatible, and sympathetic? And is that always a good thing or not? This also makes me think about that whole idea about comfort, safety, risk, behavior, the right behavior, the wrong behavior. Anybody want to tackle that question?
I can jump in just with one comment in relation to the question, if I understand it, what Gary's trying to get at. One dimension of it may have to do with the awareness of other cultural traditions and the need to translate, where perhaps those coming from a European or American context, in the past at least, may have, in feeling themselves to be at the center of certain ways that art history or performance history has been written, be less aware of what is going on outside of those histories and less immediately willing to begin processes of cultural translation, reciprocity, and so forth, where perhaps where you are drawing on other long-standing aesthetic heritages and cultural traditions from outside of Europe and America, but also very aware of modernist forms as they developed there, as well as modernist forms as they developed in, China, Japan, Taiwan, Russia, or elsewhere, then in your thinking, there's already a process of reciprocity or cultural translation that can then be played out in the way that you respond to other works or translate your own work. I'm not sure if that's where the question was going, but that's what I had to say in relation to that.
Donald, you're muted.
Thank you. Forgive me. Kathryn, I have a question for you about MADRE. How long have you been there now? And do you want to say just a little bit about working in Italy and in Naples?
So I haven't been here very long at all. In fact, I arrived after the lockdown when planes started flying again between Paris and Naples. So 2 months on July, August, really. During the lockdown, I was working with an artist in Lagos and the museum people in Naples and a great producer in Naples to produce a sculptural installation that has to be performed, that we installed when I arrived. So we were working out new ways to move ahead with, international conversations and producing at a distance, which was very interesting. So the first thing I did when I arrived was to install work by Tayo Ogumbinyi, who's a Jamaican-American Nigerian artist based in Lagos, and who accepted the challenge to make a commissioned work that would be a playground, and so performed by all the big and little kids in the area around the museum who'd been locked up in really tiny spaces over this whole summer. So the museum has had free entry, and this installation that's called You Will Play in the Everyday Running is installed over the large courtyard of the museum. And it was a very, very interesting and successful process where we were able to work with this great producer to create these kind of bent bar fluid shapes and bases that refer to cooking pots and garden, but also refers to cooking plants in Campania and in Nigeria. So just thinking also, I bring that up because I was thinking also about objects that are performed and other ways of thinking about performance and moving forward with performance in this period of working differently and less mobility. So, whether that certainly will involve different forms of producing at a distance, but keeping translation, keeping conversations, dialogues going internationally. I think that's very important. And thinking about other modes of performance, such as protocols that can be enacted, which is another form of performance at a distance, of course, or objects that can be enacted as processes that might suit our current constellation of circumstances.
So that's how you're adapting in Naples in your new job. What about you three gentlemen? How are you adapting to the times we're living in? I would be curious to know. And what do you see as possible ways forward?
When you say adapting, do you mean particularly in the pandemic context? Yes.
An ominous silence, or maybe not ominous, a ruminative silence.
I know it's during the lockdown time, right? And how the opinion forward about for me, it's a little bit shy to say that because this year is my like a family year, so I have a daughter in this year, so it's much more like the new life because of the daughter, but not the COVID-19 or something. So we changed the style of like the working time or the working space because of the daughter. But for the lockdown, it's like we still have something to do that is obviously when we have much more conversation about or the talking in the virtual or during the phones or the not the real touching ways of connecting each other, we will have much more imagination about if I run into someone, what I'm going to say, or if I can have a chance to hold someone's hands and what I'm going to do. So for me, it's really like the flesh to the flesh that we have been much more treasure when we can meet with someone. So for me, the traditional way in the proscenium stage, that will be for me it's more touch to see the performance or something. But we cannot forget this year, and this year for me is a big change. It's about, because when I growing up in the tribe, the same in 2003, the SARS we all covered by the mask with the cover, and my generation we call that in tribal language is Ladamukis. And after 17 years ago, we have run into this same situation, the same situation this year. So maybe the same generation who grew up in 2020, we can have the same name in the tribe name. That means the mask of the mouth. So it's a big turning of like 17 years later. Something is still going up, but we cannot forget when we're holding hands together, and when we can meet the real body, and we can have some chat, and something is totally different, that we will take the internet is not for necessary, but we take the real person as necessary to have. So for me, that's more important in this lockdown situation.
So I'm also thinking about River, your piece, which is very tactile in many ways, and Chi-Wei, your piece. People are sitting very, very near to each other. Are these two works? Is tape music and My Body is a Queer History Museum? Are they adaptable to today, or do new things need to be? You know, how do you negotiate that pre-existing work with COVID and touch and et cetera, et cetera?
Well, for me, maybe I will do another work. My Body is a Digital History Museum. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess what I wanted to say is, I'm an internet person, but I'm not an internet artist. Meaning, like, you know, the digital tools or such technology has been not my practice. However, during this pandemic period of time, when I was lockdown in Paris a few months ago, that weird everyday situation has been pushing me, or I push myself in a way of getting greater understanding of what's going on in relation to the digital realm. That means I started to do a lot of research, reading books, or checking some examples of other artists' work about how the artist's body is being considered or presented or represented through the webcam setting, or through the live streaming setting, or through the digital performance setting, not in the real stage, but on your desktop of your computer. So I started to learn like how to consider the screen itself or the desktop of somebody's computer itself as a stage. And when live everything, no matter it's voice or body, being illustrated onto this dimension, how how the artist and the online viewers who are hidden in front of behind the webcam can have conversation, and what does this kind of conversation mean in a way. And of course, I totally agree that the value and the likeness of theater and the museum of live performance cannot be adapted because at the end of the day, it's simply very different. I mean, the internet and the internet sphere and tools and digital politics has its another own world of discourse. And so at this moment, I have no idea about how to reaccommodate or adapt somebody's or my original work onto other sphere, because at the end of the day, the media is different. So if I will do something, I perhaps I would directly address that internet sphere to create something for the internet and within the internet architecture of the performance space.
Chi-Wei, do you have any response to that?
Yes. Basically, tape music is about exchanging set levels. So it's very dangerous, actually, if we organize this kind of sessions in this condition. So, but by pure accident, I was invited to to create a new work for the Belgian Royal Museum, Royal Fine Art Museum, which is very big. And in that case, I can make a version with a distance of each performer like 10 meters. So in this way, it can work without such danger. But it's true that in this year, basically all my performance and exhibitions are annulated. For me, it's very direct.
Well, I suppose we because we must, and as creative people we have to rethink how we operate, and that will lead to different kinds of solutions and attitudes. I know I find after an initial wariness to this world we are occupying right now on screen, this flat world, I'm becoming more accustomed to the possibilities of intimacy and a more focused exchange than perhaps I would have to go back to River's work in a party, because the party would be swirling around me and people might come up to me. I can't do that. There's a different thing where I have to pass my attention or the attention of the flat room to someone else. So it's quite an interesting way to rewire the brain. There's been a comment which I quite like from Kenneth Wong about balcony culture in Naples, and I don't know Naples that well. I haven't been there very much, but Kathryn, is balcony culture thriving in Naples right now?
It's alive and strong in Naples, I would say. I mean, I think everyone heard about the kind of singing from the balcony that was going on. There was an artist photographer near the museum who during the lockdown was doing film projections every night for the area around him. Since the end of the lockdown over this summer, there have been theatre performances going on in the open space. So Napoli Teatro Festival, which is a very important theatre festival, did go on, belatedly, but with much smaller numbers in the audiences, with distancing and often using beautiful outdoor spaces. The museum has 2 courtyards, so we have also been able to stage some theatre and live arts in the courtyards over the summer period during these long summer evenings. So it's good to see, that life is returning. People are very, very happy to be able to, even with some distance, be with other people and to return to the museum, return to live art spaces as well.
So, Kathryn, as someone who obviously has a relationship with Taiwanese artists already, do you foresee that in the future those relationships, you will continue to build upon them either live or digitally?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think I definitely have plans for Naples, for the MADRE, and I think there are some plans, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it, but for some new relationships with Italy in terms of the very good funding support structures that exist for the arts in Taiwan through the Ministry of Culture. And of course, that's very, very helpful for international museums today, given the cuts and so on. And that live arts are very expensive to present. And in general, moving things, objects around the world is going to become more and more expensive and difficult. It's very important to have that kind of support so that international relationships can continue to be developed, and the visibility of the very, very vibrant artistic scene in Taiwan, including the live art scene, can continue to be presented internationally. And I guess, that comment also about the fact that now with transportation of objects becoming more difficult post-COVID, with both, increases in costs for shipping, and also hopefully some more awareness about the problems of objects show that require very high numbers of objects to be shipped very long distances. If anything, this transition should go more in the direction of live arts or longer production residencies, so really focusing on people and translation between spaces and bringing people for longer times, and then how they can think about their practices differently in those other contexts and relate to local practices and aesthetic heritage. So I think that's an optimistic note in all of this.
Well, yes, I have a habit of trying to reduce things to sound bites, I guess, and longer and local seem to be two L, and I like alliteration as well. Two L words, longer and local. There's been about Taiwan digital distribution. This is from Dr. Priscilla Chung Nainby. Hoping to see theater innovation towards digital distributed theater for the new normal. Is Taiwan season considering this collaboration? That is a question that none of us here on this page right now, on this stage page, are able to address. But please bring that to Taiwan Season's attention. Also, there was an earlier question from Gary Platt about India, which is a country I've never been to, but it had to do with audiences in India. Have any of you presented your work there, and what sort of experience, if you've been there, have you had? Anybody?
I have, 2 years ago, I have presented a work in Goa. In Goa, at the Serendipity Arts Festival. So that's a large scale festival presenting visual art, theater, dance, all kinds of events. And my experiences towards Goa now for me is very blurry. Because at that time I was performing by myself, like every day, like 5 hours per day. And I was like super exhausted after performance every day. And I didn't really get a chance to see around the city Goa. But yeah, but I don't know. I wouldn't say I know Goa or Indian context, but at least I would say that compared with Taiwanese experiences, I do have a huge interest to getting to know South Asian context, like Goa, Sri Lanka, India, Sri Lanka, that region.
And when you were super exhausted after 5 hours of performing, what kind of opportunities did you have to receive audience feedback or have any kind of exchange? How were you reading the people who were experiencing whatever you were doing performance wise?
I basically, well, at that time, every day when I finished my performance, I simply ran away from the venue to bars. Yeah, because I was like, oh my god, I need a drink. Yeah, yeah, and then yeah, it was like simple exchange at a bar setting with some audiences.
And with the My Body as a Queer History Museum, what kind of besides binding breasts and things that you mentioned, what other kinds of audience participation were they invited up onto the catwalk? Is that what I was seeing in the clip? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so they were invited to do the catwalk and also invited to learn the technique of drag queen. Like, because one of the performers, he is a drag queen, a very young drag queen. And then so he was showing the skill or like secret of how to hide, you know, your balls, or like to shape your male body into visually biological female one. So that's included. And also other workshop is touching exercise, like invite like the one of the performers inviting the audience members to close their eyes and touching strangers body, and then during this in this situation to reconsider your body, your social distance between you and other people when you don't know, or when you can only know their biological gender through touching. Something like this. It's like the workshop, the parts of the workshop is pretty interactive, conceived by them, and then being staged as a whole situation.
So was that a workshop that was part of the 5-hour duration of the piece? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. River, do you have anything for our panel that needs to be covered, or are there any other points before we start to wrap up? Because I may have a triggering question to end with, but before we get to that, is there anything that we haven't addressed from your perspective, River?
I guess a lot of issues and concerns have been covered so far. I guess so. Because I earlier I was wondering if I would invite each of the panel members to share about their experiences either presenting or curating live works in gallery settings, or how this experience is different from in the theater settings. And I guess we also have already addressed a little bit. But but of course, if any of you wanted to add some words, you are very welcome.
Well, could I add, just as a provocation or triggering thing, audience engagement, marketing, finding the right imagery and language to best put forth your work. What sort of choices are involved in that? I guess that's a question that's related to the worm on the hook to attract the fish. If a title is a clue, so is all of the marketing material. Or in order to get funding, you often need to very articulately explain what you think you're going to do, even if you really want to find out by doing the thing what you're doing. So anything about those sorts of issues, that artists need to address to either make work or get support for work or have their work presented? Look at those thinking faces. Who wants to go first? And this will be the final question. You don't have to go on at great length, but
Okay, I try to go first. But before that, because I was interested about that, Chi-Wei posed the question: would your work be able to adapt or reinterpret to the social distance format? Because I was wondering about this wondering, and for me, it's I'm really wish to do something like this, because our culture changed by the environment and the surrounding that surround us. So maybe in this year, we try to make another way of living by because of this lockdown situation. But for me, it's like we can do that for the art. That, but in the real life, if we're trying to do that as our old story about the tribe, it's like you are making a curse to the culture. It's like you are cursing the culture that we are all going to do that in the same way. But for me, it's full of imagination that what if we cannot holding hands and seeing each other together, or living in the same house and in the same building to having the ceremony or the harvest together? What will be the harvest look like in every year? So that's really interesting to think of that, because of this year that we cancel so many tribal harvest festival for real. So I will imagine that if I can doing that, maybe well, we will more treasure about the plant and the farming things and the trees and also the air or the ground and the land. And that's more close to our ancestors' ways, because we are really dealing with the nature. We are not only with the people. We're dealing with the nature, and we having the real good connection with the nature, because we can hunt the food, we can collect the food to the mountainside, to the riverside, and to fish on your own way. Maybe we are going to be the new age, the one indigenous people of the tribe, and maybe we are going to be so many several tribe of the indigenous people. We are going to pop up for so many culture, different style about the indigenous culture. Maybe about this year we can do in that. And for the title of the reducing the viewers, because I have another experience in my VR film. My VR film is also about, I want to use this VR headset for the music, how to say, the interactive microphone, to make the audience singing with the elders or singing with the songs. But every time I choose the titles, and the producer always say no, because it's too hard to know. Maybe you are right, but it's too hard to know what is the film is about, because the international audience didn't know your language. You have to say the common language in the universal. So the title will be really common. So, but I'm not really satisfied with the title. I'm still thinking why we have to do it in the title, that we want to make some people to understand. Maybe in the subtitle, or maybe in the statement we can do in that. But in the title, maybe you are going to looking up for in the Google, you're looking up for the titles, you will learn another culture, because of you are using your mother tongue spelling in the title. Because when I learn everything, when I Google it or when I ask it, I can learn more further than the film wants to tell me, and or the piece want to tell me, or the performance want to tell me. I can learn much more about how this happened, why the curator, or why the director or the choreographer want to use this title, and what the titles for me, that will be my meaning about your work. I think that's really touch and fantastic, that I can have my imagination to your work, and maybe we are going to have the connection in the film or in the work that you made for us. Yes.
You make me think of how the difference between a work that I see of any kind, where it's all done for me, everything's explained, it's clear and graspable. I think I am much more interested in the kind of work that I can bring myself and my imagination to, that I can reinterpret, that I don't necessarily understand automatically everything about it right away. So you've expressed that really beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chi-Wei or River or Kathryn, any sort of wrapping up words?
River can go.
Well, maybe it's not a wrapping words, but I found it's interesting when you position seduction V as surrender, and I've been thinking about this set of wordings, and yeah, that's all. Yeah, I mean the seduction, the relationship being viewed or constructed as seduction hyphen surrender is interesting because it's related to participation, but also institutions and creative artistic strategies in a sense of get connected with the general public. So yeah, and
I think
sorry.
I think the reason it arose in my mind is because after decades of being a professional viewer, a writer, a critic, I learned when I let my resistance go. And that was a very appealing and interesting place to be, that I suddenly realized I had let go of any kind of judgment or just resistance. I think it's the most satisfying, one of the most satisfying experiences, when I surrender.
So nowadays you are kinder.
I think, River, that I was always rather kind, because I know that all artists want to give me their best, and nobody wants to make what I consider bad work generally. And bad work does exist, but even bad work has its value, of course. Anyway, Chi-Wei, any final thoughts?
There are so many points. Your idea concerning seduction and surrender reminds me of the book of early Confucius, sacred book for the Confucius believers, followers, which is called the Book of the Music.
So that's a good reference. More to
there
find
are
out
lots.
more. The Book of the Music.
Yes, because it's such a book concerning the relationship between politics and music, and how people are turning into one under the function of ceremony or music.
And there's the concept.
I mean, there's a oneness behind the idea of the book of the
Thank you
music.
for that. Kathryn, any final words for today?
I guess in terms of what I said before, which were kind of concluding comments around the position of live arts, which I feel is a very strong one in the next period, just to say that for me, the most interesting and innovative contemporary practice has to do with the creation of relationships and finding ways of sharing knowledge and translating. And, you know, that's at the heart of these practices that we've been talking about today. And I think that that will be at the heart of the next period of where artistic practice is moving towards. So I think live arts has a very healthy present and future.
It's good to end on an optimistic note, which I would want to do anyway. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, River, for organizing and coordinating these lovely people to be here today. And thank you, audience, wherever and whoever you may be, for sharing this time with us. I'll be back next week with on Tuesday with Chi-Wei Lin of Taigu Tales Dance Theater to talk about the Back of Beyond. And then next week on Wednesday and Friday, the webinar, the theme is Indigenous Arts. So we've had a sort of early taster of that today. So thank you for that. And all of these conversations, I think they're a very valuable document for whoever might be interested in Taiwanese and global culture in 2020. It's all available on Cultural Taiwan UK YouTube and also on Taiwan Season YouTube. So if you know people who you think might find our random or not so random discussion valuable to listen to, then please direct them there. So many thanks for your presence today.
Thank you, Donna.
So long, everybody.
Thank you,
audience.
Fangas, Chi-Wei. Thank you.
Thank you, Chi-Wei. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Weir. Thank you, Kathryn.